So for this second example, a little bit more of a challenge because you're pulling out a number and also it goes one more step and it does actually break down a little farther. So we're going to take a look, right? This first one here, I notice I have a 3 in front and I also have a negative. First thing I notice is I don't want the negative, so I want to be able to pull that out. But I also, right, notice that if we had a 3 there, right, 3 times 4 is 12 and also 3 times something is 15. So I can actually also pull out a 3. So I can pull out a negative and a 3. So in this case, we're going to be kind of combining everything we've done and pull out both a 3 and a negative. So I'm going to pull out a negative 3. So in this case, if I go ahead and I set up my parentheses and I think about what's right going on here, just like before, if I pull out a negative, right, I'm going to pull out a negative. The signs are all going to change on this. And so if I did that, I would be left with 3x, right? Since I pulled out a negative from this 12, that's going to become a positive 12x. And then since I pulled out a negative here, the sign's going to flip, so it's going to be negative, right, 15. And if I want to double check, negative times 3 is going to be my negative 3x squared. And negative times my 12 is going to be minus 12. And a negative times my negative 15, and negative is positive. So it's positive 15. So, right, that would work. Now, the thing is, I also have, these all have a 3 in common, so I can also pull out a 3. So if we go one more step here, so we still have the negative on the outside, we can also pull out the 3, right? And so in that case, when I pull out a 3, I'm left with just x squared. Here, it's going to be plus, right, and I have 4, because 3 times 4 is 12. And then when I borrowed a 3, or I took out a 3, I'm left with just 5 here. All right, and so that looks like we're like, we're almost done. But we do, right, notice we've pulled out some numbers here. This is what we started with yesterday and with the Khan Academy, is if we had something like this, we can break this down one more step. The thing that made us able to do this is because we moved or pulled out all the greatest common factors from these. So that's really what today's about, is how do I pull stuff out so that it leaves me something I can deal with if possible. Sometimes you're going to get to this and it doesn't go any farther. So in this case, though, it does, because as I look at 5, right, the different ways to get 5 is 1, right, and 5, and there is a way to either add or subtract 5 to get 4. I just have to make sure my signs go in the correct place. So if I put down my 3, and I'm going to set up 2 sets of parentheses right here, right, I know that my x squared comes from the x times the x. I know 5 in this case, there's only one way to get the 5, which can be 5 and 1. So I put that there. Now I just have to make up the signs, right? If I'm going to be something times something, it's going to be negative 5. One has to be negative, one has to be positive. Because if they're both positive, it would be positive 5. If they're both negative, negative times a negative is positive 5. So one has to be negative, one has to be positive. And we want it to come out to be, when we add them together, a positive 4. So the 5 is going to be, right, a larger number, and the 1 is going to be the negative, right, that's making this go down or subtract. So, right, I want a positive 5 because 5 times x is 5x, and then I'm going to take away one of those x's, so we minus 1x there, and then that would be factored as far as possible.